Hey everyone, this is Frito Lakaraja Raven. I'm here with my recap and review of Three Pines, season number 1, episode number 1, which is titled White Out, part 1. And yeah, this is a new show available on Amazon Prime Video, and it's based on a series of novels starring Chief Inspector Armand Gamache. And yeah, I think the first book came out in like 2006 or 2007, and from what I can tell, the current story is supposed to be an adaptation of the second book, which involves a woman named Cece, a socialite, being electrocuted, and Armand has to figure out who ended up doing that while he's getting used to living in a new community called Three Pines. So the episode opens up with we get to see this protest happening, and this protest is happening because of the indigenous women that have gone missing. If I remember correctly, there are like 5,000 women that went missing in a single year, and of course, the police isn't necessarily doing enough to find them. And Armand is looking on the protest, and he doesn't like how everything is being handled because the police is basically being quite violent towards the women that are protesting, and one of the police officers end up hitting a woman and then handcuffing her. And Armand is like, no, that's enough, I have to go down and I have to help them. And he ends up helping the woman, and he also offers them to give them a ride home, and of course they accept. However, Armand's higher ups aren't very happy because of how I guess he broke protocol or something. And on their ride to the family's home, this is where Armand gets to learn more about what these women are protesting for. So apparently it turns out that one of the daughters, she ended up gone missing, and she's been missing for like 13 months now, and they have been trying to find her, and the police of course isn't helping them. And yeah, Armand is like, are you really sure that she didn't run away? And they're like, no, she has a daughter over here and she won't leave her daughter ever. So yeah, as far as we are concerned, she's in trouble and you have to help us. And of course Armand is like, yeah, I'll help you. And the woman's name is Blue Two Rivers, and I guess trying to figure out what happened to her, that's going to be one of the main narrative through lines going through this entire season. Because again, as this episode continues, you can tell that Armand is he feels very, very invested in finding her. And something happens, which we'll get to in a bit. Something happens concerning a picture that was posted of Blue Two Rivers, and you know that yeah, something's up. Then we cut to a scene at Armand's house. It's Christmas, it's the holidays, everyone is celebrating, and we get to see two of the people that Armand works with. His name is Jean, I guess, Jean Roy or something. It's gonna take me a moment to figure out the correct pronunciation of his name. And then there's also this woman. She's an indigenous woman, and she's a sergeant, and I guess she has like 2 kids. I'm not really sure. So these two work with Armand, and these two will be working with him as the episode continues when it comes to figuring out who electrocuted Cece. We also get to see this guy who's apparently Armand's friend, and he's like, Armand, you're into finding what happened to that girl, right? That Blue Two Rivers girl that went missing. And Armand is like, yep. And he is like, will you help me? And this new guy, Armand's friend, he ends up telling Armand that apparently there was a truck involving 2 brothers, and Blue Two Rivers was dating one of the brothers, and that truck ended up crossing the border or something. And Armand is like, hey, I want your help, so please run those license plates again. And then we're introduced to even more new characters, and I guess her name is Cree. She's a young girl who's waiting for her mom to show up to watch her have this singing thing at the church. And her dad is like, hey, we need to go, your mom said that she'll be there, so she'll be there. But it turns out that the mom, Cece, she's been hooking up with her photographer, and yeah, it's not a happy family. We get to see a scene between Cece and the photographer, and she ends up telling the photographer about her past, about how her mother wasn't into these baubles that go up on Christmas trees, and she used to break all of them. And then one day she was taken away, and I guess Cece had to fend for herself. And yeah, you can tell that Cece is like, she has a whole lot of walls around her, and I guess she doesn't feel that she quite fits at Tree Pines, and the photographer is like, Cece, I love you, and she's like, nah, you're crazy. Anyway, I have to go, and I have to go attend my daughter's musical performance. So at first, Cree is very happy that her mom decided to attend her musical performance. But yeah, as soon as Cece sat down with her husband, these two start bickering. And yeah, the girl is like, okay, so even though she's here, she's still not listening to me actually sing. And yeah, it was a sad moment. And then we get the scene where the family is back at home, and the dad is like, hey, I guess there's still some chocolates under the Christmas tree. And Cree goes to get those chocolates, but as she's walking, she ends up knocking one of the baubles, the ornaments that Cece was showing the photographer. And yeah, that ornament fell to the ground, it broke, and yeah, Cece lost it. I guess seeing an ornament break again, that reminded her of her mom, and she started yelling, and she's like, yup, it was a mistake to be here, it was a mistake marrying you and giving birth to this child. And I'm like, wow, Cece, wow. And Cree ends up cutting her finger as she tries to pick up one of the shards. So in the next scenes, we get to learn more about the community that's present in Tree Pines. So this old woman over here, her name is Ruth, she's an author, and yeah, these two guys, I guess they run a bistro, and I think that they're supposed to be a couple. I'm not really sure if they're supposed to be a couple or not, but I think that both of them are queer. And then the woman over here, she runs a bookshop, and we get introduced to other characters as well. And yeah, basically everyone has a problem with Cece. And anyway, they're trying to have fun because they have this curling tournament going on, and everyone is excited about that. We get a scene between Cece's husband meeting Cece's photographer, and yeah, you can tell that the husband knows that these two have been hooking up, but I guess he doesn't want to say anything. We also get to meet this woman. I think her name is Carla. She's a local artist, and she wanted for Cece to show her work to the photographer in hopes that or the photographer, or was it someone else? It could be someone else, but yeah, she was hoping that Cece could help her be discovered and whatnot. And yeah, Cece's like, yeah, he looked at your stuff, he didn't like it, so bye. So while everyone is playing, you can tell that Cece is feeling a bit hot, and she takes off her gloves. She's like sitting on this metal chair, and I think that this chair was it had a board on it saying that it was supposed to be for one of the team members that are playing in the curling tournament. But yeah, Cece just throws that board away, and she sits down. She takes off her gloves, and yeah, she touches the metal chair, and she gets electrocuted because there's also some liquid underneath her chair, blue liquid, which ends up being like washer fluid. It's bad. She basically ends up being electrocuted in broad daylight in front of everyone, and no one really notices. So we cut to Armand going over the women that have gone missing and everything, and he gets a call from his higher ups, and yeah, he has been given Cece's case. So he says goodbye to his wife, and he heads on over to Tree Pines. We get a very, very interesting scene where as Armand is driving through Tree Pines to the scene of the crime, he ends up noticing other people notice him back because, again, he is a newcomer in this little community. And as a mystery author myself, I really like these mystery stories which are focused on small communities and the tight-knit groups that the community have. I really enjoy that. So you can tell that everyone in the community are basically suspicious of Armand, and Armand is going to be suspicious of everyone involved. At the crime scene, we get introduced to a new character. Her name is Yvette Nicole, and she requires a lot of training. She's local, she's trying to go on up, but she has things that she need to work on, especially when it comes to taking notes and recording everything and not making assumptions. And Gamache does give her certain lessons, which hopefully she'll learn. So as everyone is going to the crime scene, Jean ends up telling Armand that, you know what, Armand, I know who you are, how you are. I know that you always like to take on these little projects. And yeah, John can tell that Armand wants to take up Yvette as a new project. And John is like, I've worked with Yvette before, she's a klutz, she's clumsy, so don't get involved. And Armand is like, well, Jean, I like to remind you that you were once my project too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Inspector Armand. Chief Inspector Armand teaching Yvette, which makes sense because as he's teaching Yvette, Yvette is basically like the audience surrogate at this point. So as he's teaching Yvette, the audience can get to learn what he's talking about and how he's to solve the case. So everyone is trying to figure out how Cece got electrocuted, and according to Yvette, she says like maybe there was a generator, someone hooked it up to the metal seat and everything, the chair, and Gamache is like, yep, maybe you're on to something. So it turns out that yeah, she could have touched it and been electrocuted. So basically there were jumper cables, I guess that's what you call them. So yeah, someone really planned this entire thing to kill Cece. So Armand is like, well, you know what? Who's the next of kin? So of course Cece has a husband and a daughter, and everyone goes to visit them. So it turns out that the house that Cece is living in, that's a place that place has a very dark history when it comes to the indigenous community. And Armand is like, yep, it turns out that it didn't bother our victims. So anyway, we have to go in. So Armand wants to talk to Cece's husband, and Cece's husband is like, well, you can talk to us in front of Cree. You can talk to me in front of Cree. And Armand is like, no, she's a child. I don't want to get her to go through all of this. So I would like to talk to you in private. And also, you can notice here that Cece is she's like teasing the scab that formed after she cut her finger last night. And also, before everyone went in, Jean ended up noticing someone up in the attic. Now, Cece's husband says that he was in the attic, or maybe he was in the basement, I don't know. But someone was in the attic, and I highly doubt that was Cece's husband. So maybe something is going on here, or maybe it's just a misdirect. So we get a scene where Cece's husband tells Armand about the book that Cece wrote, Be Calm, which was about basically, I guess, putting up coats of white paint to hide what's inside and whatnot. It's weird. That's the type of books that I'm not really interested in reading. And yeah, this is where also Cece's husband is like, yes, the entire community had problems with my wife, but not enough for them to kill them, right? And Armand is like, well, that's for us to find out. Now, I would like to talk to your daughter, please. We get a scene between Armand and Cree, and Armand ends up sharing about his own past, and he's like, I lost my parents at a very young time, at a very young age too, and that made me very, very sad. And Cree is like, how were you able to handle that grief? And Armand is like, well, it doesn't get easy, okay? And then we also get a line where it's like, what is grief but love that has no place to go? And I'm like, ooh, okay. This was a very, very fun scene for me because Armand is like, hey, it's time for us to go eat. So they head to the local bistro, and yeah, even though Cece was electrocuted in broad daylight, a whole lot of people don't care, especially the people on this table. They're laughing and enjoying themselves after Cece's death, but as soon as Armand and his crew entered the bistro, they all went quiet and looked at Armand and everyone, and I think that Armand noticed that, you know what, the community isn't necessarily very sad about Cece's passing. Armand notices Cece's picture in the bistro, and yeah, he's told by one of the managers or the waiters that Carla ended up painting that, and he's like, well, I would like to speak to Carla. And Carla walks up, and Carla is like, yeah, I painted it, but from a picture because Cece didn't have time to sit. And yeah, I just painted it. I really liked her. She was perfect. And then there's this weird conversation about where Carla is like, well, when it comes to painting this picture, it's like, when it comes to Cece, it's like she had a new coat of paint on top of her, but she still knew that there was still a whole lot of stuff wrong with her underneath. So it's like you can give something a new coat of paint, but the damage is already done. You're hiding the damage. You aren't fixing it. So before Carla can continue talking, Carla's husband comes in, and he's an artist too. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, he doesn't like Carla talking to Armand like that, and he basically escorts her away. So Armand and his crew, they sit down to eat, and Armand is like, yep, we're going to be here for a while, because again, he's very, very suspicious of everyone involved at this point. So because Armand needs a headquarter, Yvette is like, hey, I ended up finding you guys a place, and apparently there's this art exhibition called Be Calm, and the owner of this establishment has a room where she went to workshop and everything, and she's like, hey, no one is actually coming here before the thaw, so you can use this place. So yeah, this is going to be their new headquarters. As far as the establishment is concerned, it's basically an exhibit when it comes to showcasing in the indigenous community, and again, it links to what Armand is also working on when it comes to trying to find out where Blue Two Rivers is. And this is where Armand is like, I think her name is B, right? Yeah, Armand is like, B, Cece ended up writing a book, and it was titled Be Calm. So any connection to this place? And B is like, no connection. It's just a coincidence. And I'm like, And then we get a conversation between one of Armand's inspectors and Bea. And Bea is like, so it's unusual for a native woman to be at a rank that you're working on. And yeah, she's like, well, I just wanted to change the system from within. And Bea is like, how's that going for you? And she and also as she walks away, Bia is like, "Who are your people? What community are you from?" But now, but this is where we find out that no, she was basically adopted when she was 1 year old. So basically, I guess she doesn't necessarily know which indigenous community she belongs to. So I guess we'll get to see her find that out as the season progresses. So the entire crew is going over the clues that they have, trying to figure out what happened to Cece, who did it, and they're like, you know what? It doesn't necessarily make sense. A whole lot of factors had to work together in order for her death to occur, especially the boots. Shouldn't her boots be insulated? But no, it turns out that the boots that Cece was wearing that day, they had metal claws, and those also played a role in her getting electrocuted. And we also found out that she has been renting these hotels in Montreal, and apparently she's been making visits there like twice a week. So yeah, they're like, you know what, we have to figure out what's happening between her and her photographer friend. So we get a scene where Armand is looking at the crime scene, and he ends up noticing this blue bird, which again connects to the woman that he's trying to find, Blue Two Rivers. And yeah, before he can say anything to the bird, this is where he gets to learn that they tracked down the guy who basically who worked as a photographer for Cece, so they need to go and talk to him. We get this entire interaction between the photographer and these two about how he has been having an affair with Cece even though he's married, and he also used to make trips to Montreal twice a week. And Armand is like, hey, were you able to capture any pictures during the curling competition? And the guy is like, yeah, I did. And he ends up plugging his flash drive into the laptop, and you can tell that his hands are shaking. And then we get a kind of a montage where Armand goes around Three Pines talking to everyone. He talks to the bistro owners, and yeah, they had the problem with her too. They talked to the bookshop owner. She had a problem. Basically, everyone had a problem with Cece. And then Armand decides to go and talk to Ruth, and apparently he's a fan of Ruth, and Ruth is like, yeah, I ended up coming to Three Pines because I wanted to stay away from huge fans like you. And again, they're like, you have to tell us what happened to Cece. You were the first responder. You were the one who basically noticed her dying. And Ruth is like, yeah, so what? Anyway, I'm late for my book club, so excusez-moi. And she also walks around carrying this duck. Or maybe it's a goose, I guess. And also the book club is reading Frankenstein, which again, it links to what happens in this particular episode. So Armand goes to pay a visit to the book club, and yeah, again, all those people he's already suspicious of, they're all part of the book club, and they have been reading Frankenstein. And this is where Armand basically kind of reads them a bit. He's like, okay, so the bistro people had a problem with Cece because they wouldn't host her book ceremony, and then she ended up giving a call to the food inspection agency, and the bistro had to shut down the next day. And then also she went after the book owner because she wouldn't like allow Cece to have her signing there. So yeah, everyone basically had a problem with Cece, and Cece had a problem with them. And this is where Ruth is like, well, Mr. Armand, I would like to tell you something. Like, that's Three Pines is a very, very welcoming place. However, if you don't belong here, then Three Pines will find a way to basically push you out. And I'm like, Ruth, he's an inspector. You don't talk to an inspector like that. Don't incriminate yourself. Armand gets a call from his friend who was running those license plates, and it turns out that, yep, they ended up tracking where that license plate or the truck ended up, and they also ended up finding something about Blue Two Rivers on socials, and he ends up sending all of the information to Armand. Of course, Armand decides to pay a visit to Blue Two River's house, and it turns out that there's this picture over on socials that shows that she's doing well, and Armand is like, hey, that's it, that's what happened. She ended up running away with her boyfriend and his brother, and yeah, they're out of the country now, but at least she's alive. And yeah, the family is like, no, we don't believe you, we don't trust you, there's something up with this, especially because Blue Two River's sister is like, well, the jacket that she's wearing in the picture, if she's wearing the jacket in the picture, why the heck is that jacket still in her room? So yeah, you can tell that Armand is like, I guess this case hasn't been cracked yet, and he's also trying to find the person who ended up posting that picture in the first place. So he's like, yep, I guess I'm still going to try and figure out what happened to her. As Armand is driving home, he ends up hitting the blue bird that he saw earlier, and I was like, wait, is that bird supposed to be a hallucination? It's a hallucination, right? Because Armand gets out of the car, he picks up the bird in his palms, and he blows hot air on her, and yeah, the bird is okay, and the bird flies away. And then he ends up seeing Blue Two Rivers stand behind him, and he wakes up. It was all a nightmare because he's been researching on about her all night. And then we get a montage of other people basically trying to delete Cece out of their lives. The bistro owners, they put down, they take away the picture that they had of her in the bistro, and the bookstore owner ends up burning the books and whatnot. And as all of that's happening, Armand is basically placing the pictures that he had under the witness column over under the suspect column. So basically at this point, everyone in Three Pines is a suspect, because Armand is like, you know what, I think everyone worked together in order to kill Cece. And this is where Armand tells Yvette, who is the audience surrogate, about why he thinks that. And he's like, have you read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? And Yvette is like, no, I'm not a big reader. And I'm like, still, it's Frankenstein, Yvette. You should have read it. So he's like, you know what? One of the people of the village ended up rejoicing after Frankenstein was killed, and they weren't necessarily rejoicing killing the monster. They were also rejoicing the fact that all of them came together to kill the monster. So he's like, you know what? That's why I feel that everyone in Three Pines, they came together to kill the monster, who is Cece. So yeah, at first I'm like, Armand, you did say that you shouldn't be making assumptions, right? But you're also assuming at the same time you're assuming that everyone came together to kill Cece. Just don't let that cloud your judgment going forward. But yeah, as far as my opinion goes, this was a very, very interesting debut episode. So hopefully the pacing continues in the next episode. You can go ahead and watch the first 2 episodes of Three Pines right now over on Amazon Prime Video. And if you have watched the first episode or both of them, let's keep it to the first episode. So if you watched the first episode, let me know what you thought of it down in the comment section below. I'm not really sure if I'll be continuing to recap and review this show. I just wanted to get the word out because I have been watching promotional material for this show for a couple of months now. So I was like, you know what, it does look interesting, and I want other people to watch this show if they're into such murder mysteries. And also Alfred Manila, I like him as an actor. So yeah, let me know what you thought of the first episode down in the comment section below. And until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later. Bye.